For us at least, and I know this for a lot of retail businesses, is that you can you can produce whatever product you want, but if nobody knows about it, you're not going to be able to sell it. So, how did you deal with demand, your marketing, and distribution?
That's a big challenge, and we were again pretty naive about the process. But we went to Toy Fair in New York. We had a little 10 by 10 booth for 4 days, and we stood there and in the midst of the huge convention center and tried to get a little bit of attention. Our The booth across from us was some distributors in Canada, which are still our distributors. We met a man who owned 3 toy stores in Utah and now has 8 toy stores, and he decided to take on our games as a try. And we met a couple other business owners who were encouraging, but it was a very small return for the investment of that week in New York. And then we would, for the next 5 or 6 years, we would go to about 6 shows a year, either wholesale shows or shows selling to people at retail to try and build the demand of the game from the ground up. And I would spend my time on layovers as a pilot in my hotel room, calling stores, doing cold contacting. We would send out free samples to stores, and we would just do a lot of things to try and build the awareness about the games enough to where there could start to be some word of mouth and some presence. But it was definitely hard fought. One store at a time, and when I'd get home, I'd have to take the cases down to FedEx or UPS and drop them off, and I was storing them in our garage and spending my free time when I could have been out walking on the beach or something in a layover or playing golf. Instead, I was in a hotel room working to try and make this work. And for years, it was a loss. For even after we had a product to sell for 5 or 6 years, it was still operating at a loss. So I was spending a couple grand a month to be in business instead of making money. So here I'm an airline captain making myself feel poorer by having a business. And so, and my wife was patient enough to go to all these shows and also to um, have me sitting in the office instead of out doing something together. So it was definitely a sacrifice, but we always believed that it could succeed, and we didn't know how hard it would be. But once we started, we didn't want to give up. We wanted to continue on and make it happen. And the chances, were not big that it would happen, as I know now. But we didn't know any better than to keep trying, and so we persisted. And now it's become productive, and we feel like there's bigger and better things coming up as we have now doors opening up to much larger distribution partners and things happening worldwide, but domestically as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have some strong feelings about Amazon, but how has that affected your sales, your distribution? Has it been beneficial? How are the margins there
We
too?
never could have succeeded without Amazon because as word of mouth would spread about the games, say someone in Utah tells their cousin in Arkansas about the game. If the cousin in Arkansas had to find a way to get it from a store,
Hmm.
he never would have because we don't have wide distribution in stores nationwide, definitely not worldwide. And so the fact that someone could be playing the game with their friends, or they could hear about it from a friend, and they could order on Amazon, have it in their house for free in a day or two, allowed the game to spread by word of mouth. And I discovered this in the very beginning. Selling a card game is a very difficult thing to sell. If you're selling fudge, it's pretty clear that it's fudge, and that you can say it looks good, and in 2 seconds you can say it tastes good. So selling something that's tangible and visible as to what its intent is much easier. So selling a card game, I mean, it's a box. You can't even tell exactly what's inside from the box, and you can't tell if it's going to be worth playing. If it's a game that's dumb, then it's a total waste of money. But if it's a game that's good, and if it brings you together evening after evening to share good times and make memories, then it's a value, above any value because it's creating relationships, which is the most important thing. So it really has an infinite value, or it has no value.
Let's back up a little bit though. Why board games? What was it about?
We actually, I'd say we do card games, not board games. A board game would but have a lot more components, be a much bigger box, a lot more complexity. So we focus exclusively on card games. So you shuffle and you deal, and our card games are kind of traditional in the manner of play, where they're infinitely replayable, and it's not like you're trying to do one thing. It's the mix of new mix of cards and new players. Every round's a new fresh hand, and so when you have a good card game, people will play it for years and years and years because it never gets old. And so that's the kind of game I enjoy playing. I don't really enjoy a really long, complicated game. I want something I can learn to play in a few minutes and then play for years.
Hmm.
And so that's what we focus on, making games that will bring people together. And for the cost of one dinner out at McDonald's, they have something they can play for 50 evenings.
So tell me about some of your favorite games or some of the most popular ones.
The ones we make, or in general?
In general, your biggest seller.
Yes. There's a game called Cover Your Assets, which was the second game we introduced when we went to Toy Fair. And Cover Your Assets is super simple to learn. Everybody can get the idea of the fact that they're going to try and get the most value of these cards. You put them down in pairs. You try and steal them from your neighbors by showing matching cards, and it goes back and forth. There's a lot of interaction, and people get hooked on it in just a few minutes, and they want to play it over and over again. Some families play it every evening. Some families play it every weekend because people play it for years. And so that's the one that has kind of put us on the map. The golf game has successful, but it's like maybe 10% of what the Cover Your Assets is. The second most popular game is a game called Skull King, which is a pirate themed trick taking game like spades or hearts or rummy or not rummy, but the euchre or rook are all trick taking games, and that's a really popular mechanic. But a lot of people around the world really think we've done well with Skull King, and they have tournaments in all the game conventions, and they have a big tournament in France now every year in February at Cannes and Game Festival. And it's one that's just really compelling because every hand can be a winning hand, whether you bid high or bid low. If you get your hand and you get your bid of what you make, then you can win with high cards or low cards. So there's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of chance to come from behind, a lot of cards that alter the previous card played. It's just a lot of good interaction. People love it, and I've been playing it for like 15 years, and I still enjoy playing it every time I play it.
Are there some that are more suited for one-on-one play versus around the table?
We all of our games, well, about five of them play super well with two players. We have modifications to the game to make them all work for two players, but some are definitely naturally better for two players than others, and because it's more about the interaction, uh, but most of them play for like 7-year-olds up through it seniors. We have one game that's probably for 10-year-olds and up because it requires a little more planning. But it's a very we try to our optimal thing is to make it so that it covers a really wide demographic, so that it's not something just for a small focus group. It's something that every age can enjoy together, whether it's kids playing with other kids, seniors playing with other seniors, or kids playing with their parents, grandparents, and uncles all at the same time.
Hmm.
And we love seeing that people interacting with all ages.